This is Jonathan St. James, and you're listening to The Truth is Still Straight podcast. All right, folks. Once again, it is The Truth is Still Straight, and I am your host, along with my wonderful co-hosts and partners in crime. We have the view is all over the place today, but it's Dawn below. As far as I'm seeing, hopefully you're not seeing a different view. Then it's Jim on the clock at what is that, 7 o'clock over there? And then about 10, 11 over there is Donnie. All right, folks, how are you?
Hey, what's going on? Hey. Good.
Yeah, I'm doing well. It's very hot out today, and then I see Jim just flipped over there with Dawn. So it's very, I don't know about where you are, Dawn, but over here in the Northeast, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, it's a little hot.
It got hot. Yeah, it was hot and humid yesterday. It was about 30.
Yeah. Also, you do the Celsius over there.
Yeah. What'd you guys do? Fahrenheit?
Yeah, Fahrenheit. Yeah.
So what is it?
Yeah.
I don't know about today. I know yesterday
it was at like 82
close
or
to
something.
90 yesterday.
Yeah.
It was. Let's
Yeah.
see what.
Oh, it's 90 right now, apparently.
Let's see what the iPhone is saying over here. The iPhone over here, I got. If it shows up by 90 degrees, I got
90 degrees. Yeah, that's scary. Sometimes when I look at American time temperatures, they'll say like 150, 160. I'm like, what? And then I realize, yeah, it's a different temperature degree.
Yeah.
But do you guys get the humidity too?
Yeah, the humidity is terrible. We especially get the humidity because we're, violated by water all over the place. The New York area is just water everywhere. You just can't escape it. That's why, we're always on alert when it's hurricane season, because most of New Yorkers are on island. Only the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, and Manhattan are all islands. Only the Bronx is attached to mainland USA. So that's why we're always in store for hurricanes.
Always on full alert.
Yes. So what's going on? Let's see. I'm trying to think of what I wanted to complain about. Oh yeah, I wanted to complain. I tried to watch this Army of the Dead, and I was just so upset.
I watched it too.
I couldn't watch it. No way. No way. It was so outrageous. First of all, I was outraged because the guy was so dumb in the beginning of the movie. A spoiler alert, of course, where they tell him to leave, and instead of getting back in the vehicle and driving off, he runs in the desert. I'm like, how dumb is that? You literally had a working vehicle that everyone jumped out of to see what was going on. I'm like, the minute they told me leave that package there, I'm out. No investigation, nothing. I was like, no, that part I just couldn't take it anymore. I just said I'm done with it. So I watched some of it. I also saw the movie with Angelina Jolie. That was okay. I mean, I'm trying to say what the name of it. I'm looking. Those Who Wish Me Dead. That was pretty good. I also saw recently Without Remorse. That was pretty good with Michael B. Jordan. And I also saw on the Bad Batch. Jim,
what you thought of that? Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, that's a good show.
That's animation, Disney. Star Wars. Who knows who's making it? I can't keep up with it, but it was pretty good. Is really based on the Clone Wars, but actually also based on the movie. It's weird because it actually correlates to the first three movies. So I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoyed that. Because when there's not much going on in the world, I try to watch everything on TV and movies. So I tried to watch The Underground Railroad. I'll have to go back and watch it again. It was very hard for me to watch, so I'll try again. But that was we'll see. All right. What else is going on in the world? What you got
Hey,
going up for that? Yeah, you know what, Dawn? What's going on with you? I feel like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
What's up
you've
with
been-
me?
Yeah, what's up with you? Let's talk
Yes.
about that.
Yeah, so last week had the internet freaking out, but I've been working really hard. I'm, doing my business classes every day. I learned how to write a financial statement and did all kinds of market analysis. So that's been really cool, kind of learning about the business and learning about the market in Barrie. So I've been volunteering with Uplift also, like, the grassroots, the Black organization I've been working with. And I've been doing this little mini interview document series. So I've been interviewing artists in the community, and that's been pretty awesome. So just kind of putting that together, trying to work with WordPress and Canva and all types of different editing and design software. And yeah, I've just been doing some meditation, yoga, gardening, Netflix as well. I wanted to watch Without Remorse also, but I watched Justice League.
Oh yeah,
instead.
which the new version, the 4-hour one.
I don't think not the 4-hour one. No, it was on TV.
Oh,
She saw the
man.
wrong one. She saw
Yeah,
the
you
wrong
saw the
one.
wrong. Well,
You saw the wrong one.
she may not appreciate the 4-hour
No,
one.
I would appreciate it. I love those movies.
Oh,
So,
okay.
because I thought actually it's funny because it stopped and I was like, that's it. I felt like I didn't even know what. I was like, what? I was like, I didn't even know that they were even gonna be finished this conflict. So now that I know there's a 4-hour one.
Yeah, there's a 4-hour. Well, what happened was the original director of the movie, he had some issues, some personal issues, and he has stepped down from doing the movie. So someone else came in and completed, well, I don't want to say completed, but did a different version of the movie. And so eventually he came back and said, you know what, let's release it this way. And he came back and they re-released it his way. He did it for, is that HBO Max? Yeah, for HBO Max.
But
and that's how it happened.
It took a lot of strong arming to release it though, because supposedly at first there was denials that it existed. It was like the Warner Brothers became the U.S. government and they denied that it existed. So it was like a whole conspiracy theory, this, that. It was just the way they unfolded was just really weird. But
it's just a movie, right? Like,
yeah. So it's interesting because, this whole DC universe is just all over the place right now. Mind-boggling. Flash has turned into a whole big thing. I'm like, there's more drama in DC in terms of how they're going to introduce characters than in freaking Halle Berry's life. And, she's had lots of drama in her life. Wow. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on with the Flash there. They're talking about all these multiverses and this Flash is going to be there, that Flash, and so it's just crazy. And then I just saw The Rock put something out for his DC. That's him that's in that movie?
Black Adam, yes.
Yeah, Black Adam.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that should be interesting. What show that I do love is Young Rock. I love that show. I don't know if anyone has. I know, Jim, you've seen it because we've seen it.
I've seen a few episodes,
Yeah, I love it. I've watched every episode. It's really nice. They did a very good job. I don't know how many people are actually watching it, but it's actually one of my favorite shows that's on TV. It's very, very, you wonder. I'm sure some stuff is poetic license, but it basically tells a loose story about his life and his upbringing, because it's always been, what you get out of Wikipedia and stuff like that about him, but you really get a sense of like how he grew up based on this. And it's funny, it's very interesting. The people that they got to play him at the very, because there's 4 stages of his life. It's him, the to date person, then there's the college guy, then there's the high school, and then there's the small kid. They did it very well. And the guy and some of the wrestlers that are in the movie, on the TV show, they're very convincing. Like the guy who plays his father on there
he's good.
Looks a lot like his father. And he's definitely a scene stealer. The Rocky Johnson is definitely a scene stealer. So if anyone ever has a chance to watch Young Rock, it's I like The Rock overall, or Dwayne Johnson, whatever people is calling him these days. So I'm always appreciative of when he does stuff. Mostly, I don't like all the movies that he does. I didn't like Scorpion King, but most of the movies that he does, it's pretty good. Pretty good. He's a great actor. He's probably the GOAT in terms of wrestlers that turn actors. And then after The Rock, I would say John Cena's a pretty good actor too. I mean, he's next, and then probably a distant 100 is probably Hulk Hogan. Although I'm like a big Hulk Hogan fan, but So enough of that. All right. So what else is going on, Jim? I see you're at a secret location today. Good to see you.
Yeah, I know. I just popped in. I had to come in for work, so. Yeah. But I don't know. But I was looking about this whole Kwame Brown situation. I'm not sure if you know about that.
Yeah. Yes. Would you like to talk about that really fast?
Yeah, sure. So I'm not sure if if you're familiar with American sports, especially during the early 2000s, but
No.
we got like a whole sports commentary, all sportscasters, former athletes usually start podcasts and stuff like that to keep their fan base going and things like that. So in 2000s, in the early 2000s, there was a first round draft pick by the name of Kwame Brown, who is considered to be one of the greatest busts in NBA modern history, so claimed by
the greatest bust.
Yes,
not one
the
of
great,
the
greatest bust. Yes, and he has been the butt of many jokes for many people for years. Mind you, hardly anyone heard a peep out of him after he left basketball. The man was basically a ghost. He was like there one moment, then after the season he was gone. He had a YouTube channel, few followings, stuff like that. He kept it low key.
Yeah.
But for years he was the butt of people's jokes, sportscasters, media, stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, on a podcast, two former NBA players, Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes, was talking to the owner of the Lakers, Jeannie Buss. And was talking about her tenure, trades, things like that. And a trade that they did came up, and it was for Marc Gasol and Kwame Brown for a player from Memphis. I forgot what his name was. So the whole thing was that, she said, yeah, we traded Marc Gasol. We didn't know what we had in him. We also traded Kwame Brown, and then one of the guys cracked, just Marc Gasol. Just Marc Gasol. Like, he was like saying Kwame Brown was like basically nobody. So it all started from there, and it just snowballed. The fact he didn't like it. He answered in a not so kind way, but I think that bluntness is more of his thing than really tact, because he's not a sportscaster, so you don't care about tact. You don't care about how the way people view it. See, he's been basically blunt, but then Charlemagne the God from the Breakfast Club got involved with it in the worst way. He should have just kept out of it. He just should have stayed out of it. And he dug up information about Kwame Brown's father and his brother, stuff that Kwame Brown didn't know, and he aired it, and he put that on air at the Breakfast Club.
Shit.
So he just dropped like a 10 megawatt bomb, and Kwame Brown
he just did that?
Yeah, he did that, and everything just snowballed, like basically snowball. So he's been going a tyrant, a little tyrant there. He's been very cool, but like I said, his speaking is not out there. He's from down south. You can hear in his accent. He got a large twang, and he's been going at Matt Barnes. He calls him Becky with the good hair, Steven Jackson, Stephen A. Smith for all those years, making him the butt of his jokes. And now the whole conversation has shifted to how Black athletes don't look out for each other, how they try to make a narration that they themselves may not want to do, but they have to do it to keep viewers and stuff like that. He's basically calling them sellouts and things like that. And that, there should be some principle when you're reporting. And his whole situation and his whole NBA career has been brought into a different light because of all this. I'd say it's partly vindication, and it's probably, about time, he stuck up for himself, because he has not said anything for years. He has not.
Yeah.
And for him just to come out, that's the whole thing.
So he lets people know his experience when he was on the Wizards, because he was saying how when he was drafted by the Wizards that Michael Jordan didn't want him on the team, and that they made life difficult for him. And that's why he never was quite successful, because they set him up to not be a star player. And I could see that, because they tried to do the same thing to Kobe Bryant. When Kobe Bryant first came into the league, they definitely didn't want him to be a star. Del Harris, who was the coach at the time, he limited his starting time. He was off the bench. He didn't play a lot of games. So they definitely didn't, the issue, and what people don't realize, because we live in a different era of sports, is that when kids came out of high school, they had no respect for these kids. LeBron James is really, and LeBron, I would say probably Kevin Garnett was probably the first high school kid that came into the league that was allowed to be a star from the beginning. But these guys that came out, Kwame Brown and Kobe Bryant, they didn't really have a lot of respect for them coming from high school. And you had the coaching. So, the way that the NBA works is the coaching philosophies change through eras. So they didn't quite grow to where they were accepting of high school kids. So when Kobe Bryant came out and Kwame Brown came out, especially Michael Jordan, he didn't like any high school kids. So now, everybody comes out of high school these days, but back then, most people had a couple of years of
right.
1 year or 2 years of college, and then they came into the league. So,
right. In Kwame Brown's case, he was the first overall coming out of high school pick ever in the NBA.
Big.
And yes, and it was a big deal at the time. And he was supposed to be traded for Elton Brand, another basketball player that Michael Jordan wanted, but the owner nixed it. And what Jonathan says, from that snowballed effect to him having a very hard time there, because Michael Jordan didn't want him. And, it's hard for you to be successful when a person who up top doesn't want you.
Right. Absolutely.
And, few people knew about it. Few people talked about it. But when the person themselves does not really complain about it, the person it's affecting, and this is what it is, you should really, leave that alone. And I am upset at these guys for not really going after Michael Jordan, because he's still a big money maker. Nobody's holding him accountable for his treatment of it. People, he had the documentary that they had on the Bulls team. They say that he was rough for them too, but nobody's not holding him to the fire, because he has 6 championships, stuff like that. But the ends doesn't justify the means in that case for some of those things. And, until then, Kwame Brown's like making allusions to that, you're not holding the right people accountable. You're talking about different things. You're creating a false narrative that's easy for you to do without having to do any research or anything of the stuff like that, because you're just basically looking at my playing record, my numbers. Lazy reporting, basically.
Right. So I wanted to go back to the whole Charlemagne the God thing, because he basically criticizes him, because apparently in the past, sometime in Charlemagne's past, there was some issue with sexual assault of an underage girl in South Carolina, I think it was, and he was involved in that. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly how the case turned out for him, but he was definitely involved in the case. And
he pleaded guilty to a lesser charge.
Right. And he was basically saying something like he didn't know, or something like that she was underage or something like that. Classic, I think that's what I remember him saying. So, and I know that happens. And I won't shout people out, but I do know celebrities firsthand that have been involved in things with underage girls. So the thing is, they probably didn't know, but more so than not knowing, really didn't care. because you can care
This
and be like,
works.
is this girl really at least 18 years old? Or, so I know a lot of guys don't care. If she looks a certain way, they're down for whatever. And like I said, I personally know celebrities, but I will not, put their names out there. And I know that that's what happened with them. And they got caught up in situations where they were involved with underage girls and got in trouble. And it wasn't that they went out looking for them, but they just picked up any girls. And, some girls, teenage girls, they're like on the borderline of looking like women, but also sometimes the age, the mentality, the age gives away for some girls with that mentality, because a girl can look grown, but 9 times out of 10, if you have a conversation with them, you can kind of tell that where their age is. And most of these guys, and they're not vetting these girls. So police rate charges, all of that. But when you have good lawyers, you can beat charges, and that's usually what happens. They have good lawyers, and the lawyers get them off. And when you don't have good lawyers, well, you do the time mostly. Anyway, enough about that. And I don't mean to cap.
Yeah, drawn on.
Yeah, capping means something else in this day and age. It used to mean something else back in the day. So for those of you who don't know, for those of you who are older, capping means lying. So anyway, that's a whole different topic. Okay, let's get into the topic today. All right, so today's conversation, folks, I've decided for better understanding. So when people look at the titles of the show, that I wouldn't do those popular titles anymore. I would actually name what the topic is. So today's topic for the relationship series is expectations, boundaries, and standards. So I wanted to really talk about that today, is because it's becoming increasingly apparent to me that people struggle with relationships with people, finding the right person, meeting people and things like that. So I think the way that we need to hold this discussion is really talk about these things, because these are the things that are really the foundation of all relationships: your expectations, your boundaries, and your standards for a relationship. So what is an expectation? Of course, expectation sounds straightforward. And, the definition of expecting is something that you look to happen, something that you're looking to happen. So something you expect to happen in your life, in a relationship, those are very important. So the issue with expectation is many people have realistic expectations, and some of the people have outrageous expectations. And that's really, I really want to start off, is talking about individual expectations. So I think the way to do this is to identify some of the expectations that people have, and sort of put a spotlight on what people are expecting in relationships. So one of the expectations is, I would say, what a relationship looks like for a person in terms of when they meet somebody. So what do you expect? So you expect, let's say, I'm not going to go run down a whole list myself. I'll just give one, and then we can kind of have a talk about that. And then I would say the expectation that a lot of people have is so men and women have similar but separate versions of what attraction is. So men and women both want to be attracted to the person, but the man really kind of stops at the attraction, and the woman sort of has the characteristics of the person after the attraction. So a guy might say, okay, I want a woman that's has a nice body, she's pretty, and things like that. And a woman might say, I want a guy who's handsome, have a nice body, but then there's these other attributes that he has. So I think when you talk about meeting people, is we have to talk about how you sort through these qualities, because what's happening, people say no compromise, right? So people say, oh no, if he doesn't have this, I'm not compromising. So then when you don't have a compromise, how do you move forward? Because how do you place somebody into that situation where they become this person that's ideal for you? And I think that's where the disconnect is happening. So I want to talk about the disconnect, because when people are looking to choose from people who are interested, well, when women are looking, because men don't really, some do, but many don't. Men, look for somebody, and then the woman often chooses if they like the guy or not. But what happens is fitting the guy into the mold of somebody that you want to be with. So I guess in that perspective, if I didn't say too much there, Dawn, I guess I'll turn it over to you, and we could kind of talk about that aspect of expectations in terms of finding someone that you would say, this is somebody I could possibly be in a relationship with, and move forward in that.
It's interesting that you say that men are so just attraction based, and you kind of end there. It's kind of funny, because females, I feel like we're more feeling and stability based. When it comes to expectations, that's kind of what I'm looking for. I don't really put people in boxes as to like, oh, I can't date you because of this, or I can't date you because you look like this, or you make this amount of money, this or that. It's like, I think the disconnect you're talking about comes from people thinking those things are important, thinking that, you're going to know right away if that person's for you. And I think expectations are dangerous that way, because you're setting yourself up basically to kind of like to fail, because you're trying to control a situation that you have no control over. And like for me, for expectations, like I just want you to just accept me. I just want you to be honest, to be considerate. Those are kind of like the first beginning things, just overall characteristics of a good person. And then eventually over time, like I know you're flawed, so growth will come, and consistency will come, and support will come, and more acceptance will come. But I think that's where I start when it comes to expectations.
So it's good that you said that, because that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. So here's the thing. So I think what happens is I think people get driven by societal narratives. So a lot of times when your solitary thoughts of meeting someone is, like you just said, is more specific in terms of what is peaceful to your life, what will bring peace and fulfillment when you meet somebody. There's a societal push in this world that people must look and feel and act a certain way to be suitable for you. And we're finding people are falling into this mold where it's not only, like you said, but then it's like you have to have this kind of money, and you have to, so the world is pushing everybody to be rich, right? That's the world that we live in. Everybody has to be rich. So it's like, yeah, this guy has to, and this is the whole why we talk about this guy, Kevin Samuels, all the time, because the narrative is these men must have this kind of money. So but the issue with that is the reality is, in men and women, the average man and woman does not make that kind of money. So you're talking about, I'm going to meet somebody, so you got to be attracted to this person, and they got to have these characteristics, and they got to have this money. But the problem is there's not many people that have that kind of money. So the issue becomes, when they don't have money, how do you circumvent that? So the expectation is society, where, like you said, historically, people have found people that just brings a certain, I want to say peace, a certain peace to their life by knowing them, by being with them, by interacting with them. So when you meet someone, there used to be a time where you got along with someone, they cared about you, they were courteous, respectful, and things like that. And you built a relationship based on those things. But somehow I'm going to use metaphors from a lot of these podcasts, and they say Disneyfy, everything has to be a fairy tale. And so people looking for the fairy tale person, and then it doesn't happen. So the issue with that is a lot of times someone's looking for that, and then they may not find it, and they get with that person anyway. And then it falls apart because the person doesn't have the money. So a lot of times you'll find people in the beginning, they'll make concessions so the person doesn't have money, but then the issue becomes down the road, especially if the guy doesn't have as much money as the woman, that it becomes a problem, because now the woman has this guy that she feels like she's covering for. He's not financially stable and things like that. So next thing you know, the woman feels like, oh, I got this guy, he's useless. So I think, that we have to talk about really what's at stake when you meet somebody, and the possibility that not every man out there is going to be this financial powerhouse. And if that is your issue, how do you figure that out? Because what's happening is people are getting with these people because what do they say? Most of the divorces are financially motivated. Like a lot of the divorces that I don't know about in Canada.
Yeah, it's like the biggest stressor.
Yeah, it's the biggest, one of the biggest things is the financial aspect. So I think a main talking point is understanding really how do people navigate through the financial portion of attractiveness, because there are many people who out there are attracted to the people who make a lot of money. So, all right, Jim, I'm gonna see what you have to say there, because I feel like I've been doing a lot of talking here, and I want to sip on my iced tea over here real fast.
Yes, I agree with you with the Disney snowball effect on the expectations of relationships for certain groups. I do believe that some of Hollywood is culpable in it. Our current environment, TV shows, reality shows also play a part in it as well, even though they say they're reality shows, it's scripted for, ratings and things like that. The lines of definition of those things are definitely completely blurred. I wonder, if that's the way things are going, or, is if people realize that their expectations are distorted or skewered based upon someone else's ideal. And I think that copying the prototype or, an exception, people are trying to get into that type of sphere. They see people on Instagram, social media plays a very negative part in that as well. They see other people having success or things like that. Not really knows what's going on behind the scenes for it, but they think that's the ideal type relationship because they see it and everybody's validating it and praising it. It doesn't work for everybody. You always have to find out what works best for you and what Dawn said, your center, your peace of mind, things like that. Some things may have to play more importance for expectations than others, and maybe looks that do have to take a back seat. Also with expectations, you cannot fault a person for not being an expectation over something that they can't control. Like height is for one instance, body type is for another instance, certain types of body type. And for men, the size of the size of a certain area not meeting expectations. You can't really fault a man for that. They're working what they're born with. Most men will not get surgery for it. And men realize that, sometimes looks do have to play a back seat. From my experience, and I'm not trying to make one gender better than the other, but to me, men are sometimes more amicable when it comes to dating certain types, especially if they're just regular men. When it comes to certain men in the top sphere, but most women have to realize that all of you are competing for the same type of man, so it becomes a very cutthroat competition. That's why you see a lot of women getting their body surgically altered and things like that. It creates a very bad snowball effect, because with those things, regular men are now exposed to those type of women, and now that's what they're expecting or looking out for, because that's all that they're exposed to. So when you see that all in your face all the time and stuff like that, your thinking starts to change, and it's like, oh, she looks good. Oh, she got, that's what they're expecting. The problem is that they don't have those same type of expectations for themselves. So, like, I always say, if you don't have that for yourself, how are you going to have that for somebody else? And we on both sides of the issue have to realize that it starts with us.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just wanted to kind of travel back to a previous point that I was making. And I think when you meeting people, you have to really focus on where do you personally want to go? What is, first of all, before you expect from someone else, what do you really expect for yourself? Like, what is your specific expectation for relationships? And so in the next round of the discussion, I'll get a little further into that, and we can discuss that. But Donnie, so you being the junior out of all of us here, what do you see in this discussion?
I wanted to make a quick note, and it is going to be a quick note because I actually do want to go on to that next round of things. But I wanted to make a quick note on kind of like this, that kind of materialism that a lot of people get entrenched in. I do think, I think Jim mentioned that part of that is Hollywood. We'll promote that. I think our society as a whole is sort of geared towards that. Because, and no, this isn't a big rant on why we should be communists or anything like that. But there is a lot that comes with having a capitalist society that people maybe aren't paying attention to. I think because people are so geared towards stuff, that's where you see these people who part of their expectations is someone who makes a certain amount of money because they want to be able to maintain the kind of lifestyle that they've had promoted in front of them, or that they've fallen for, or whatever else. I just wanted to put that in there quickly before we head on to the next round of discussion.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to talk about in this next round of discussion of expectations, like I was saying, when we talk about what are the expectations that you have for yourself. So you have to, how serious is a relationship to you? And I think the misconception that people have is when they get into relationships is that they have all the time in the world. And it feels that way. I started working at my job. I was 15 years old, going on 16 in the same month. And here I am 3 decades later, still there. So I would have never thought, oh yeah, I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to be doing that. But days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, and months turn into years, and years turn into decades. So I've been at my job more than half my life, but never thought I would be there, and thought I'd be doing something else. And time has went by, and other things happen, and other things happen. And before I turn and blink my eyes, I'm at this point now where that I'm most likely going to retire from that place and work at no other job or no other place, unless I open my own business. But if I don't open my own business, there'll be no other place that I'll be employed at. I'll retire from there. And I think the mistake that a lot of people make is they put off everything for tomorrow. And so it's an investment. When a relationship is an investment, and you have to invest in what you want ultimately. And if you're not interested in bad outcomes, you have to put into it wise decisions so that you don't get to the point where you're questioning, how did you get here? And so many people, they fly by the seat of their pants and get involved with people based on emotions and how they feel about someone. So they meet a guy and they're like, hey, or meet a woman, and then there's all this emotion involved, and there's no logic, there's no common sense involved. And before you know it, years pass on by, and sometimes decades, and now they're trying to figure out what to do next. So I think there has to be an investment in yourself when you meet people, and you have to have an understanding of where you want to go from that point. So you see someone, I see this beautiful woman. Okay, so she's beautiful. I say hello and she says hello back, and the conversation is going well. So if I'm interested in you and you're interested in me, how do we proceed? And I think that's the biggest misconception that happens in relationships, because we live in a world that's financially driven. You go to church, they're talking about being rich. You turn on TV, everybody's talking about being rich, getting a bag, buying Balenciaga shoes, and everything. Everything is about that flair for finances. So we live in a world that is driven by that. So a lot of times we meet people based on those ideologies and forget to think about the person behind whatever they have on, whatever kind of job they have, whatever type of home or car they drive. We don't focus enough on the raw person behind all of the things that they have that makes them attractive: being handsome, being beautiful, being in good shape, having a nice body, those type of, being good in bed, or if you get that far. But those are things that a lot of times we focus on and don't focus on the essence of a person. And then we have expectations. And once we get past the simple expectations, we don't think about the deep rooted ones that actually, when you peel back the layers of a person, is what keeps you together with that person. Mm-hmm. So Dawn, I'm going to turn it over to you. Hopefully I didn't run you off the road and we're still on the highway together. And what do you have there?
Yes. And exactly, peeling, those layers off, because those first expectations, maybe weren't the things that you truly needed to know to have a good relationship. So to go back to your question, or to your little segment about our expectations for ourselves, I find that I have pretty high expectations for myself, but I can't really put that onto other people. There's something that I've been learning. It's called harm reduction. And what that is that you kind of meet people where they're at. So, I mean, I can have expectations for myself, and my expectations in other people, and a successful partner would be somebody that wants to be ambitious, that wants to, move forward, that wants to just, maybe just have a little bit of security. But it's never like the things that I want for myself I'm putting on them, and you have to have that. Like, I just want you to have, a little, maybe like a certain characteristic or something that just kind of shows that you're motivated, or, that we can align in some value or some way. But honestly, when it comes to money, like, I feel like money is an expectation because now we are a consumer-based society. I think that what advertising and commercials and movies and Hollywood has done has kind of turned us into being like addicted into buying things. And like, I just lost my train of thought, damn it. And yeah, and so with that, like, we just, we tend to think that those things are happiness because we get that certain gratification when we buy things. But when you really get down to it, it's about, like, is that person loyal to you? Are they supportive to you? Like, can you like expect to come home and, have things kind of taken care of? Like, can they help you when you're stressed out? Can they help you de-escalate a situation at work? Like, those things are the expectations that I carry. Money and that whole brainwashed issue that, society and government has kind of done to people, it's not worked on me. Like, it can be idealistic, but like, we're just spiritual beings having a physical experience. And like, I just really care about people's core. And authenticity and realness and honesty is like the biggest thing.
So I have a question. I have a question for you. Now, I know you can only speak for yourself. So I guess this is based on yourself. So, because I think sometimes there's a confusion from person to person, what an ambitious person looks like. So for you, if someone was meeting you and you wanted someone that was ambitious, what would ambition mean for you when you met someone?
simply just going from point A to point B, like just going from, you know, this step to the next step, and then always kind of wanting to at least go to the next step. And it doesn't have to be career wise. It could even be just like for self-development. It could be for health, you know, it could be for art. It like that's for me is ambition. But like, of course, I would like somebody who is interested in the same kind of things as me. That would just work out well, like art, like traveling. And you know, yeah, you'll need a little bit of money for that, but like I don't like it's not really a big factor. That's probably like the fifth date factor for me.
Yeah.
But like if you at least want to get better, you know, if you're working at McDonald's and you want to work at Moxie's or like, you know, like somewhere like a nice
Yes,
restaurant, then
yes,
I'd be like, hey, sweet, that's dope, that's ambitious. But
yeah.
also I am hard on myself. Like I'm really hard on myself. So I think I tend to be really easy on other people. But I would like somebody who wants to, you know, get into the film world and, you know, kind of take over the world or some crap like that. But it's not a big deal.
So what happened? So, but you're okay not meeting that person because I think that's, you know, so a realistic.
Yeah, well, I have no expectation. If I meet that person, I meet that person. But I know that I'm going to meet the person that I'm supposed to meet.
So it's flexible based on the person, right? So if you meet someone and like you're saying, the ambition doesn't necessarily mean they have to become Jeff Bezos, but they just want to have they need to have better for themselves.
For the family, for me, I think that's like a male and female thing, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, yeah, I want to be protected. I want to make sure if we're having kids that you can provide a house or we can provide a house, like, because it's not just you, it's me
yeah,
too.
because I was going to say that. What if
no, we're working together, but like if I'm having the kids and working and bringing home the bread, like, okay, you better be doing all kinds of garden work. I better have some roses. Better have a bed of tulips out there. But you know what I mean?
And that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. I like that because I think it's important that people understand that because like you said, so, you know, a lot of people have the conception, yes, that the ambition means that the person should be a huge breadwinner. But here's the thing, like you said, the person could be making a lot of money, but then tragedy hits. And let's say you have to be hospitalized and you're sick. Now the person's not there. They're just doing their job, making lots of money, and they're paying the bills and the mortgage and the car notes or whatever it is that you have in the household, but they're not there for you. You're in the hospital by yourself, wondering who's going to come visit you today. So when that happens, money doesn't matter, right? I know when I was hospitalized, I wasn't thinking about, what new outfit I'm going to buy or if I'm going to the movies or whatever. I'm thinking about, making it out of this hospital, getting better and getting well. And then the most important thing to me was who was going to come see me, like who was going to come help me out, support me, sneak me some food, even though I couldn't eat, but, stuff like that. But those are the kind of things I thought of. And the problem with people sometimes is their mindset doesn't immediately mature. So that's the whole point of having an understanding of where you want to go in your relationship with a person. Because when people meet people and they get in relationships, they don't think about the long-term goals of the relationship outside of just material things, because material things are wonderful until they don't matter anymore. Because when you're dying, having a BMW or a Mercedes Benz it doesn't matter. If you're sick and you're going through something, if you have cancer and you need to have chemotherapy and you're not doing well, having a mansion doesn't matter, because guess what? If you're in the hospital and you're suffering, none of those things does anything for you. But having a husband or a wife or a boyfriend or a girlfriend or someone that's by your side and supporting you, encouraging you through the hard times, those end up outweighing the most important, the superficial things in life, such as having fancy things and lots of money and jet setting around the world, because you can't do those things when you're in poor health. But you want to make sure that when you need someone is there for you, and not just to throw money in your purse or your pocketbook or in your Zelle or your bank account. So, I think I appreciated what you said, because I think that's a bare essence of what people should really be striving for in relationships. And I think it's important that, people are rooted in fairness, not just to the person, but to themselves. Because when you look at stuff and you look at everything from money, get your bag and this and that, it becomes problematic when the crap hits the fan and you need somebody to be there for you, and you turn over your shoulder and that person isn't there. And now you're really at a loss, because you want someone there for you, and that didn't factor into your expectation of a relationship, at least immediately. And then when you find out that that person is not that guy or not that woman, you've already invested years in that person sometimes, because not everyone gets sick and gets cancer right away. Sometimes tragedy happens over years, and then when crap hits the fan, that's kind of when you find out who people really are. And then that could be 10 years, that could be 15 years, and you've been with this person for all of the years and not know that they really weren't supportive of you when you needed them. So I think that's a very profound thing that you said. And, I just hope that if someone listens to that, they can think about that and have a better understanding of where they want to move forward. All right, Jim, you've kind of been busy in the background over there. Hopefully we got you for the next couple of minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I also, appreciate how Dawn, on a personal level for herself feels about expectations for relationships. It's always good to be very open about it at the beginning of a relationship, because it's good to get gifts and to show off and things like that, for some women, but they don't really give the expectations sometimes of that type of personal connection that they're looking for. And some of them, based upon the attitude, I think the personal connection is material things, and it's not really. And that gets kind of lost in the translation, or in how they want to view the relationship and things. Secondly, it's also how you view the other person that you're going to be dealing with. The idea that society has implanted is that men are only good for certain things and women are only good for certain things, but it has a deeper meaning than that. And as Jonathan says, if we don't, peel back the layers and take a look, and see what we want for ourselves first, and then look for it in the other person. It's not, you're not gonna get it right the first time, might not get it right the second time, but the responsibility of us having to look and to find that person, that's another problem, is that we let the stereotype shape our judgment because it's just easier to look for. You can just look on social media, you can go do that, go right into DMs, bam, 1, 2, 3. It takes work and effort to find someone that you are really looking for. And most of the people today don't want to put in the work. They just have the prototype of everybody else's prototype, everybody else's prototype, everybody else's stereotype, and they just go with that. And that's where the disconnect comes in. Like I said, what works for one person might not work for another. This is not the Instagram glam life, and it may not be for you. It's good on what they post, but behind that post, the mask comes off, or the green screen disappears, and what do you have? Just a whole hot mess in the end. So to me, we have to be a little bit more forceful and be strengthened in ourselves to get the relationship that we want. Now, that doesn't mean that you transform the person into the person that you want. Never do that. But you look for what you want in a person and you take it from there. Make it organic.
Yeah, definitely. You definitely don't want to push someone into being that person that you're looking for. They should be that person up front already. And that's definitely some words of wisdom. All right, Donnie. So we're up to your portion of the point of view and perspective. So you've been listening to us all this time. What do you have on your mind?
First, just to make sure I'm on point, can you just give me a little bit of direction?
About the
Okay.
topic.
Yeah. Just because I got just sort of lost when you had asked that question earlier. So I just want to make sure I'm still on point.
So the point we're talking about is really when you have expectations is really what is your specific expectation of what you want for yourself in terms of relationships. And like, for example, how do you see a relationship turning out for you? Because a lot of times people get into relationships and they don't see what that should look like. They get into these relationships with people with these expectations, and then life happens, and then they find out that they really should have been looking for other things, but hadn't thought about that because the materialism part of the relationship, the aesthetics, the look of things, the feel of things actually took precedent over what a relationship should really be for a person.
Gotcha. Yeah, okay. So I am. What I wanted to say was I think this is almost as big as the materialism thing. I think that one thing that people get caught up on is the concept of love in a relationship, which is, of course, at the core of it, and it should be important. But I think some people fool themselves into believing that love is enough to support a relationship or sustain a relationship, I should say. Um, a lot of people will go into a relationship and the only expectation they really have is that their partner will love them wholly and truly and all that. I think they're not taking account for all of the other parts, as you said, all the other parts of a relationship that they should be looking for. And I do think this does tie back into that idea of Disneyfy, where a love can conquer all and all of that. I think a lot of people, when they get into that type of mindset, they'll get stuck in a relationship that, while it's full of love, there's lots of passion, all that, there isn't any of the other substance there. So it's a hollow relationship. And they end up probably in a situation that they shouldn't have been in the first place.
Those are usually those usually
Mhm.
drug relationships, like junkie relationships or
Mhm.
alcohol relationships, because it's just the pure passion, but no
Mhm.
stability, no, yeah.
Right.
Sorry to cut you off.
No, it's fine. Yeah, exactly that. I think what ends up happening to those people oftentimes is when they get that far in and they got the love that they thought they was all they needed, they then will get upset when the other person doesn't have things that they're suddenly realizing they also needed. They start projecting the things they should have been making clear they expected from the beginning. They start projecting that onto the person way late, way after it's already been a thing for however long. And then that person is then, I guess it's not even fair to them, because if all they need to do was love in the first place and suddenly it's different, now they're going to feel like they're being attacked. So then you just have a spiral that just goes into arguments and all that, when you could have been avoided in the first place by being fully cognizant of what it is that you want out of your relationship.
Yeah. I wanted to actually comment on the love aspect of relationships, because that's a big problem for relationships, because love is really, in essence, a feeling of a feeling and a thought of interpretation of what it means to every individual person. So the problem with love is two people don't always agree what that is. Like, there's a feeling, yeah, I love you, but what is the definition behind that feeling? And I think that's what really gets people into trouble. Now, I know a lot of these people out here talk about relationships and marriages, more so marriages than relationships. It should be a sense of duty. And that makes a lot of sense, because the problem when you base relationships on love is a feeling. So if you are upset with somebody or have ill feeling to somebody, then that relationship suffers, because then the love meter is altered by whatever you're experiencing with that person. So if I'm at a good place with my significant other, the love is great. If the person is doing something to me then the love is not that great. So the love meter sort of circumvents the attitude in terms of the relationship. So I think the commitment to me has to circumvent the emotion, because you may not love someone at all times. Today I might love you, tomorrow tomorrow I might hate you, and then the next day or a year from now, I may love you again. You know, those are temperaments. So the aspect of love, true love, agape, or unconditional as they call it, a lot of people don't know what that is. So you're asking someone to define something they don't have the answer to. So love, the feeling of love is pretty wonderful, but the consideration of duty and commitment to a relationship has to actually be stronger than that feeling of love, because it's like a job. It's like if you're committed to your job, even if you're not happy being there, you're going to perform well. But if you're not committed to working and then you don't like your job, you're not going to show up. You're not going to perform well. You're not going to do what's required of you. And then what happens? You either quit or you get fired a lot of times. So I think the problem with love is, like you said, people want to say, yeah, love conquers all, but you got to be on the same level. And that is very rare, because no one has the same the same expectation of love. It's like if I ask everyone the definition of a word. So if I told everyone right now, write me a definition of a specific word. It may be similar, but I can guarantee, unless we all read out of the dictionary and wrote out of the same passage of the dictionary, we wouldn't get the same definition, even though we know we have an idea of the meaning, but we don't understand it in the same way of expression. So when I'm going to ask you, what does society mean? And so we may all come with definitions of society that are similar to one another, but we won't have the same words. They won't match exactly the same. And that's just like love. So we feel things like, I say, oh, I'm in love. And you say you're in love. And so there's a feeling that we feel when we say those things, and we experience whatever we're feeling that causes those feelings. But in the functions and the gears of what love is not exactly the same, because what love means to maybe you, Dawn, would be something different to me. And if we were involved and we were in a marriage or a relationship or something like that, I love you how I love you, and you love me how you love me. So I think the mistake that people make when they base a relationship solely on love is when there's a sort of a break or an interruption in that feeling of fluidity that stops them from wanting to function in the relationship. So it's like, I'm mad at you. You did something that upset me or hurt me or whatever. So now I'm going to deny you the relationship because I'm angry. So the sense of purpose and duty in a relationship of giving yourself to another person, to me, has to circumvent the feeling, because when you don't feel a certain way and you act on those feelings, it causes problems in the relationship. So you have to have someone that the relationship has to be the same way a person you want to be ambitious about their life and their career, they need to be ambitious in the way that they function in the relationship. So when things are bad, they can still function inside the relationship, and they can do the things that they did the day before they were upset with you during the same time when they're upset with you. So yesterday we may have been cool, but I upset you or hurt you, but you have enough duty and commitment to the relationship to say, even though I'm upset with you, I'm still going to treat you the same way I did before we got into this disagreement or this division of feelings or whatever. And so many people, they act on love. So when they feel like they don't love someone, then they don't want to be with that person. So they base the problem on the feelings of what's happening in terms of working out the relationship. So I don't feel, I'm going to go cheat on you with somebody. I'm going to go have a relationship with somebody else. While I'm with you and while I'm figuring how I'm going to get out this relationship, they're already working on the next relationship. So there's no sense of commitment and there's no sense of duty to actually make it work. So I think that is part of like having an understanding of what you ultimately want out of a relationship. So I didn't want to really continue on that because I wanted to talk about boundaries, but I guess we can sort of motion into that. And if you had a travel back that you wanted to comment on anything, you can, but I want to talk about boundaries. And to me, it's important that in relationships, you set boundaries when you decide you want to move forward and interact with somebody. Boundaries are very important, and people need to know how to set those things up. So that's definitely that I wanted to go into. So I'll let you lead the initial conversation with the boundaries, if you don't mind. And if you want to travel back and respond to something I said, please do.
Okay. I'll travel back to what you're saying about, I really liked what you said about, putting the commitment over the feeling. I think that's what you said, right? What was the commitment?
Yes, that's what I said. Yes.
Because we are all flawed humans. There are gonna be there are times when you hate your brother, you hate your sister. The commitment and the loyalty is what keeps you family, is what keeps you close. So if you're in a relationship and we're having a disagreement, we're having a fight, I expect you to be loyal and to be honest and to commit enough to me to respect me and to not go and cheat and to go and do something stupid because you're upset. And that's where you really try to decipher if somebody's capable of being that way when you first start dating them. I'm not looking at what car you drive. I'm looking at how are you treating the waitress? What do you do in a situation when you see homeless people? What are you doing when something awkward comes up? Those are the things that I am watching to see if, you have a good character or not, because that is what's most important. And I also wanted to go back to what Jim said about, I think about prototypes. I think that was really interesting because I think that, especially in our society now where kind of social media has kind of made it a thing where people kind of have a certain ideal body type, whether it's from Kim Kardashian or whoever else, it's a fake body type that all these people are trying to date. And I feel that certain people date, these certain girls just to impress their friends, so they're, once again, it's the superficial ideal where they're not dating a girl that could be a great mother for them. They're dating a girl that could be a great addition to a party, which is so embarrassing and lame because it's only hurting you in the long run. And I think Donovan can even agree. I think Gen Z and next, we're kind of changing the whole idea of alpha male and what's hot. Everybody's kind of free game right now. If you have a good personality, if you're a good person and you're not going to get canceled, there's a good chance that you can find love. I feel in our society right now, in Canada, that is, we're not as kind of money hungry. I know a lot of girls, that's not their first thing. But yeah, you got, come on through.
Yeah.
Canadian girls are the best. We're the best. We're just, everybody's so nice here, bro. It's really crazy. But when it comes to boundaries, I feel I don't know. I don't really know how I should dive into this one. I can maybe talk about.
If you want me to snatch it back and give it back to you, I mean, I definitely can do that.
Yeah, snatch it back. I just wanted to give props to Donovan and Jim for that.
Yeah, I don't, I just want to say I never get any props here. I'm just, I'm indebted here.
It's your show. It's your show,
I need to hire somebody that's just gonna sit here and give me props all the time. I watch this thing go around all the time, and all I hear is, I just want to say I really like what Dawn said. Jim and Donnie, LaDonna. I'm glad I don't have low self-esteem. I would be at the therapist.
I give you enough props outside of the podcast.
Yeah,
okay, you do, but no one is. Listen, the tree is not making a sound.
Well, I honestly agree with everything you say. I feel like you're the host, right? So everything you say is I feel biblical. Yes, it is written. Yes, we agree.
Okay, so what's the Cash App now? Oh wait, you said you don't have Cash App, right? You said no Cash App.
No, what?
I thought you said you didn't have Cash App.
Not in Canada, no.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. So I said no Cash App. PayPal, I think you have, right? PayPal?
Yeah. And we got Wealth Trade Simple. That's where I do my cryptocurrency.
Do they use that here?
Yeah, yes.
Oh,
you guys use Robinhood too.
Robin
also
Hood.
another
Oh yeah, we got Robin Hood.
Yeah, yeah,
one.
Robin Hood. Yeah, all right. So I think the point of boundaries is acceptable versus unacceptable. And I think
Right.
that's an issue that a lot of times gets skirted because we're building on attraction, but we're not talking about what's acceptable, what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. And I know that sounds like expectation, but the boundary has to be where you're willing to go. How far are you willing to go? What are you willing to accept? And what are you willing not to accept? And that's a big problem because what I see is so many people are comfortable moving in a direction and then it gets there and they're like, oh my God, now you have to address it. And it becomes so much of a tense interaction because you've let it fester for so long because you've never set the boundaries in your relationship that now you're there where it's hitting at you. And now it's like, how do I respond? And a lot of times what people do is when they hold on to that issue, and they're ready to address it, it turns into a big blow up. So I think when you want to get into a relationship with someone, your boundaries of what you see in a relationship, what you're willing to deal with, and like our perfect example would be dealing with the opposite sex. What are your boundaries there? So if you're in a marriage or you're in a committed relationship to someone, what are your boundaries? What are you, how far, what are you willing to accept? What are you willing not to accept? What are you willing to compromise on? Those are things that you have to understand from the beginning, because what's going to happen if you don't talk about it, people are going to, we all have boundaries. I mean, we don't pay attention to them, but we all have boundaries where this is past what we want someone else to do. But then what happens is because we don't verbalize and discuss it, it goes past what we require in relationships in terms of out of bounds. This is out of bounds. So, I could be in a relationship with a woman and her boundaries is she doesn't want me taking women out to restaurants, let's just say, because that's really sketchy. Why am I taking a woman to a restaurant at night? What is the point of that? So, but I do it. So I'm like, oh, and you find out and you're like, well, that's a problem. But here's the issue. We've never talked about the boundaries of what's acceptable in a relationship and what should be acceptable. I mean, a ground rule is always you should never do something that you wouldn't want the other person doing. But a lot of times people do the opposite. They do what they don't want the other person doing to them. And it's just weird. And then you find out, you go through all these things and you learn a lot of things are going on because you've ignored the boundaries in your relationship. And a lot of times when you don't set boundaries, I can tell you from experience, every time they will be crossed because it's just the nature of people. People will do things that are out of bounds if you don't tell them, because and not to say that people are selfish, but most people are not considerate towards how you feel when they do things that hurt you. Most people say, oh, I wonder how this person's going to feel. They're doing it based on how they feel. So if they want to be around someone and it bothers you, they're going to be around that person and not even think about how it makes you feel until they're in the predicament. So does that sound like something you can kind of jump on there at this point, Dawn?
Oh yeah, for sure. So like, I guess boundaries, the difference is, what is acceptable to you and what's not. And those things can be very specific and tailored to you, because we all have different paths. We all have different, things and quirks and things that bother us or don't. And I guess it depends on like what your tolerance level is too. And one good thing that I think you also mentioned is like speaking up when you see these little things happen, especially early in the relationship, because those things that are not acceptable are red flags. And if you continuously ignore them for months and months and months, and then you're in a horrible relationship, well, it's because you weren't looking at the relationship honestly and seeing the red flags for what they were and being true to yourself. Because I think that's another thing that like people forget is that like, it's okay to put your needs first. Like, it's okay to tell people that like, this is something I don't like, or this is something that I need from you, or this is something that I don't need from you. And like you have the right to speak up and be able to say what you want more of or want less of. So I feel like if people did that more in the beginning of the relationship, then they would like, you know, cut off a lot of like incompatible situations and maybe even some like pretty bad situations. And you you also have a better chance at having a happier relationship if you're honest and if you speak up and say the things that aren't acceptable to you. And if it's something that they maybe don't understand, then you just talk about it, you communicate, and then you come to an agreement or a compromise, or you don't. And you know, maybe that's just something you don't touch or you bring up another day. But yeah, once again, you have to just talk about it. And like, I guess for me, a specific boundary for me would be like, I personally really hate when I'm with like a partner, or whatever, and they're like gawking over another woman that we see. And doesn't happen, but like that's just one of the things that like if it does happen, I'll say it. And like it comes from me seeing, you know, other male figures in my life doing that and me feeling like that was disrespectful. So the boundary might not be relevant for anybody. Like they might just be like, well, whatever, I can look. And I know that, yeah, you can look, but for me, it triggers something else because of what I've been through. And then that becomes an expectation for my boyfriend or for my partner. So, I mean, with the boundaries, it's all different, but you just have to be honest with yourself and not feel ashamed for like how you feel.
Right. Certainly. And I think boundaries are something that they have to be firm because that is what sets the tone for a relationship. And when people are working within bounds of a relationship, people can enjoy a success because that's someone working. So if I'm respecting the boundary or boundaries and you're respecting my boundaries, we're constantly working at making something progress. So we're making the relationship progress so that we can get, if we're dating, to become more exclusive, to become engaged or married, if that's where we want to go, whatever the ultimate goal is for us. When you're following the relationship within bounds and you're respecting the boundaries, that's a conscious effort that you're making to show value to the person that you're with. And that's why it's very important to have boundaries. All right, Jim. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you. What say you, sir?
I believe boundaries are important at the, at the outset relationship to, like what you said, know the parameters to operate in, but also, to be upfront, if any red flags do start appearing or, too many lapses from your particular person is happening too much. It won't save you arguments or headaches. It might just save you time with the person as well if they cannot operate within those boundaries. Not everyone is at the time mature or capable enough to operate with what boundaries that you may have, or they might not accept it at all and just pretend that they can deal with it. So for me, with the boundaries is that, you have to be able to accept it in a way that you don't feel that you feel like you're being compromised or you're feeling belittled or, you're being treated like a child or something of the sort. Those type of boundaries have to be realistic and, that you can also practice yourself when it's given to you as well. Most of the people, they get into relationships, like what you said, but they don't set boundaries. But, they don't know what that is because they look at other people's relationships as well. And they use it as an example, probably, if their parents had a bad relationship, they'll probably use that. If their brothers and sisters had, relationships, they'll try to emulate that sometimes too, especially if they're starting out. It becomes a point of you have to realize what you are willing to accept and what you are willing to give to make the relationship work. Boundaries are very important for a person who were doing things or had certain things set before you came into the relationship, and you have to go from time to time, look, this is the situation, this is how it is, especially if you have children or you have a divorce and you're paying alimony, stuff like that. Those things, those boundaries are type of important for you to disclose because it helps shapes the nature of your relationship. What can you expect?
Wait. So just to be clear, you're referring to before the relationship.
Yeah. Before,
okay.
yeah.
All right.
Because those are things, those are things that, they have to operate within as well. Not the person who's against relationship, the person who, who's it affects more. So once they get into that relationship, once you get into a relationship with that person, knowing those parameters are there that you have no control over, but you might have to operate within, is up to you to accept or to say, it might not work for, you get that choice to do it. And that's what some of the things are taken away is choice. When it comes to that, you don't let the other person choose if they are able to work within those boundaries. That's the first thing. When you withhold information or stuff like that from them, because you really like the person. Second, it could be also reverse way. They know the deal about it, but they pretend that they can work within those parameters and not being honest with themselves about what they can do, because they generally like the person. Really, you generally like the person. They're a very good person, but some of the parameters you cannot operate in. So it becomes more of a choice if you can or cannot. It's always important to state these things off the bat in front of the person, not just to waste your time, but you don't want to waste the other person's time either. And then secondly, it'll create a lot less tension amongst yourselves, because you have to be honest with if you can accept those terms or not. And most of the people will start out accepting the terms, and either they can make it work or they can't. And that's where the arguments or the disagreements happen, because they can't make it work. So it's up to you to say if you can change the parameters, or if unfortunately it might not might not work out. But you're not wasting time, you're not wasting your energy, you're not trying to put a square peg into a round hole. You're just trying to see if the compatibility is more than just superficial issue, if it's more of a growth issue, or if it's more of a advancement issue of getting from what Don said, point A to point B, without stopping at C, D, and E and gas.
So what I want to say on top of that is, so here's the thing. So I heard something and I wanted to make a response to that. And when you're setting the approach to setting boundaries should always be an open discussion and never as an interrogation to, well, are you going to do this? So anytime you're having a conversation, it has to be an open discussion. You getting someone's feeling. So if you want an honest impression of what someone will say, ask them without leading them. And a lot of times, if you want the answer to a question that you have, you don't want to lead the person into agreeing with you. You want them to give you their point of view and just ask them. So if I want to know what you feel about interacting with men, I need for you to tell me that. I don't need for me to tell you to respond to what I'm saying to satisfy I need an honest answer. So sometimes you have to introduce it by getting a perspective and introduce your feelings afterwards. So I wouldn't suggest people to say, oh, I don't want you to do this. But I would say you discuss the topic and then you express your feelings after you introduce the topic for the conversation. So because that's going to be the most honest opinion you're going to get, is just ask someone for their feelings. I mean, people are going to do whatever they're going to do. You can't stop them from being honest or shady to you. But the best way to engage your boundaries is discussing the boundaries itself, introducing it, and then getting into how the person feels on their side and how you feel on your side. All right, Donnie. So you've kind of been in the background over there. What do you have?
Yeah, I had 2 bits of advice just based on boundaries that I've experienced myself. I think a thing a lot of people fall into in terms of their own boundaries is they'll let someone's positive features be a reason to violate their own boundaries, if you understand what I mean.
Yes.
Like someone can be so great in all these other ways, but they'll push in this one place and then they'll be like, oh, well, if they're so great everywhere else, I guess I can just go ahead and do it. Situations like that just lead to tons of regret. Boundaries aren't a thing you need to compromise on, assuming they're valid. And And there are some people out there that will either virtue signal or even hold their previous generosity or kindness over your head as a way of pressuring you into going against your boundaries. And that will never end. It'll only end in regret for the person who goes against what they believe. The other person will never feel any negative from it because they got what they wanted. But on the flip side, or I guess switching gears slightly, within reason, you have to, oh, I should reword this actually. You should never let your opinions be an excuse to violate someone else's boundaries. Sometimes people will do this thing where they say, well, for an example that came up earlier was, oh, well, if you don't want me to go take out women to dinner or whatever, right? Some people will then go, oh, well, I grew up around mostly girls, so I just go hang out with them all the time. That's just how I am. They'll do stuff like that to justify whatever's making the other person uncomfortable. And I feel like that's never a thing that you should do, because you should either A, just decide to act accordingly to those boundaries, or B, if that's not a thing you can do in this relationship, you can step back away from it if that's not a thing you'll ever be comfortable with. I do agree that you can sometimes push back on certain things that might be unreasonable, but it has to be extreme. It can't just be something you don't like. That's what I wanted to throw out.
Yeah, I want to jump on that there, because so if you don't like if you don't like something, you have to navigate. I love saying that word, navigate, navigation. So you have to navigate through the validity of something you don't like, and it has to make sense. And that's something that you have to discuss, you have to talk out. And I'm going to say, since we're kind of talking about red flags, if someone is unwilling to have this discussion with you, that's probably the opportune time to take a walk. Because if someone's not willing to have uncomfortable conversations with you, they're not going to have uncomfortable conversations down the road. And that's pretty much where it's going. So you have to, when we talk about expectation, boundaries, and standards, expectations don't have to be discussed. They just have to be realistic. That's a discussion for yourself, your expectation for what you want out of a relationship. But boundaries and standards are important. You have to talk about we should talk about the standards, but the boundaries are definitely something that you should have a discussion with the person. But when I talk about expectations, I don't mean expectations of the person in a relationship, expectations of a relationship. Now, of course, your expectations that you have in a relationship should be discussed. So if you want someone to do something, if you're expecting that because it's a relationship, then it should absolutely be discussed. So I want to differentiate there between the two expectations of what you want in a relationship for yourself, and then an expectation of what you expect this person to perform in the relationship. And then that goes to the standards, because your standards, along with expectation, they have to be realistic too. So I'm going to say, don't put someone in a position that you can't perform yourself. A lot of people do that. A lot of people will create a standard for someone that they can't do themselves. So if, for example, I meet a woman and I say, I don't want you talking to men, right? But I have a problem not talking to women. That's a standard that I've created that I can't keep for myself. So you can't say it's unhealthy for a woman to talk to men when I'm doing the same. I'm doing what I don't want you to. So the standards have to be realistic. So that is definitely a discussion that you need to have with someone, is the standards that you're creating in a relationship. What are you going to do? What is going to be the standard for your relationship? For example, that was one standard. Communication is another standard. How are you going to communicate? If you have a problem, what is going to be the standard for communication? So I pissed Dawn off. What is our standard for communication when she's pissed off because I upset her or said something to her? Like, what is that standard? What is the standard for the way that we're going to show affection? Because people, when they're in relationships, they have different ways that they show affection. So the standard has to be met there, because what happens if I'm out want to, there's some people, they want to do all their stuff in the streets, and some people want to do their stuff at home. So there's got to be a standard for what we're going to do out in the street versus what we're going to do out in the home. There has to be a standard that's set on how we're going to show affection for one another that is acceptable. So she has to be acceptable of what I feel comfortable with, and I have to be accepting what she feels comfortable. I don't know why I'm all tongue-tied today, but so we have to, and I'm just using that as an example. That's, of course, there are many other things that we're talking about in interaction and relationship, but those are just a couple of points that I wanted to make. So Dawn, I'm just going to drop that on your lap and see what you have on that matter.
All right. Well, yeah, for standards, I guess standards is like more of kind of what you have a standard for, like what your standard is for yourself. And I find that standards depend on each person. So everybody has your unique personality. Everybody has different things that are important to them, whether it's school or whether it's health or whatever. But I think that it mainly depends on what your standard is for yourself. And maybe that's the same for like the expectation thing. So like, I mean, you are a reflection of the people that you spend the most time with. So when I'm in a relationship and I'm setting that standard for like, my potential husband or potential boyfriend, I'm essentially thinking about like my self-worth and like what I think is a suitable partner for me. And so like that standard can sometimes be a little high, because I feel like sometimes people like to over project and they're not really being real with themselves. And that's where Kevin Samuels comes in. But for myself, like I just always find that I just want somebody that's on the same level. So the standard I have for other people is the same standard that I have for myself. And I don't really expect people to be any better or worse. I don't expect people to be anything. I just expect them to be, respectable, loving, understanding, logical, just freaking, quick-witted and stuff like that. But yeah, that's what I have to say for that.
All right, Jim. So I'm gonna know how to toss the ball over to you. So go ahead, sir.
Okay. One thing I realized during my years with standards is that sometimes it could be confused with personal preferences or preferences. And that can be detrimental to a relationship, because that people blur that line very easily. And for me, it's standards is I won't say a standard behavior, but it's a standard of what what you're expecting and how you hold yourself to that standard and how you project it to the person that you're trying to hold that standard
So
that you have too.
Is that not status quo then? Like the standard being like what everybody in society or what everybody knows to do?
That's dictated, but that's dictated. That's not, from looking from yourself and seeing from a personal preference of what you may prefer. See, what you have is you have your standard, and it's unique compared to other people.
Right,
What most people do is I won't say it's a hive mind, but it's been dictated by some other outside source, and most of their standard has been dictated by that. They haven't really thought about it. They haven't done it because they don't want to. Just be honest, they're looking for that same, say, prototypical relationship that they see on TV or that they see in movies or something of that sort. Censors, I'm sorry, of something of that sort. So when I say that from preference to standard, that gets blurred, because what they're stating and what you're stating for society, that's a preference. That's not a standard. And that is where the lines have blurred or have become, disillusioned by others. People have that preference. but they're not willing to move off of that, but they don't hold that preference to themselves. You think that person, I want a 6 feet guy, has, is that 6 feet or is that tall? No, they're short. They have their own shortcomings that they sweep under the rug or that they dismiss and feel that they deserve such and such based on what? I don't know. Because once again, they have been dictated that type of idea. Now, where the standard is something that that you can hold up for yourself and that you can expect from others because you provide an example as well. There's no double standard here. There's no, I do what I want, you got to do what I want. There's no double standard. Okay, that should be a non-factor.
That was good.
It's not it's not do as I say, not as I do. That's not gonna fly. I don't respond to that, and I don't give that either. That's a standard. Because I don't give it, I'm not expecting it.
That was very good.
That's
Jay Diddy. I just want to give you your props. That was very good. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, it's fine.
I was feeling it. If you were a church pastor, I would have doubled the offering.
Thank you.
All right,
send
continue,
you my Cash App later. Yeah, so that is the difference I really wanted to make. And when he said that's really the main thing about that. And it like I said, it's become blurred and it's become muddled. And those definitions have to be separated. And the person that you're going to be with, they have to first and foremost have to realize that separation, or else it's not going to work.
Can I recant mine after Jim then?
No, obviously, let me cut. But
let me talk about my true standard. Okay, I think I've differentiated.
All right, let's bring it back to Dawn. Go ahead. Yeah, but I noticed it's kind of towards the end of the show. I don't want to lose time. So
no, right. So you can go back. No, you go back to Dawn, then you can skip to Donnie.
No. Go to Jim,
it's fine.
Go to Donnie. I'll say to my last little.
Okay. All right. So in that retrospect, the standard that I always tell Jonathan knows, I have pretty high standards, and I don't subject anyone to a double standard. I don't like it. So for me, I am relaxed right now because I'm currently really looking, but not looking at the same time. So, I'm a very casual person with it. My conversation pieces are always great. I have to work on looks more, but today, I'm just running out the house because I had to come into work for emergency. But there's some aspects that, you have to work on. I always have to work on. And I will never hold it against anybody else. That's stuff that I have to work on. I can't force anybody to do it. I can't push that on them. So that's a preference. But for a standard is that I hold myself to this thing. I'm going to stay with it. I'm going to be consistent with it. And then when I bring in somebody else, I'm going to tell them what the standard is for myself, how I live each day, show it to them. And then, if they're cool with that, they can get on board. And, I could realize their standards there too. And, if it matches or gels, we can actually try and do something that, is benefit. I won't say beneficial, but it will keep us sane, happy with each other and being each other's company.
All right. So are we going back to you, Dawn, or are we going to Donnie? What's going on here?
Well, I'll just go quick. All I want to say is thanks for that clarification, Jim, because I feel like, the standard is like how you hold yourself, how you like kind of show your character and your habits and what's important to you and your values. And then how credible you are when you try to tell other people to do those things, or when you try to hold other people accountable. And I was just gonna say, like the standards that I have for myself versus my preference, like pretty high standards. I'm not gonna lie, like through the roof. Like I have pretty high standards for myself. So that's why I guess I try to knock it down a little bit to kind of be more realistic and say, here's my preference, because maybe my standard wouldn't get met, but I do hold for myself like that high standard for accountability and discipline. Well, I try to. But anyways, that's it for me.
That was a good deal there, Jim. You definitely covered and carried for what we didn't mention. So we have Donnie here, and I'll let him have the final word on this topic, and then we'll close out.
Sure. I guess I'm going to go with another point of advice because Jim did cover that pretty well. I think what's important to be remember, because I think a lot of people don't do this, is when you make these standards or preferences, to actually stick to the things that you've decided to set for yourself. I think you see a lot of people, they'll make these grand statements, but their actions don't reflect it. For example, if one of their standards, they want to have respect for themselves and be respected in turn, but you'll see these same people constantly pursue maybe not good matches, people who are not respectful, poor character. You'll see that happen a lot, and there's a mismatch between words and actions. I think what people need to do from time to time, I suppose, is just stop and check in with themselves, have that conversation with themselves to make sure they're living up to the actual things they set up for themselves. Because what's the point at that point? Yeah, that was what I wanted to drop in.
Yeah, and you can definitely check in with me if you want, and I'll kind of put you on. I don't mind putting you on. You may not talk to me afterwards. I'm not Kevin Samuels. When after I give my conversation to others, they kind of they don't want to call me back. I'm just saying. All right, folks, this was definitely a great show. Hopefully those who are listening to this, whether it's on Anchor, YouTube, or outer space, apparently with all these UFOs flying all over the place.
Yes, apparently. Wait, can we talk about that, America? I'm so excited, first of all, that you guys are going to be releasing Pentagon classified documents.
Yeah,
well, that's a real
I guess
thing.
that'll have to be for the beginning of the next episode. That's going to be what you have to talk about.
Yeah, we'll talk about
that.
Right.
Full alien episode.
I think we'll have Dawn give a full report. We'll have President Biden sent her all of the files, and then she can report on it at the beginning of the next episode.
Thank you, Biden.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, we thank you for tuning in. This is Jonathan St. James along with the family, sans LaDon Marie and Danica Nicole. We enjoyed your company. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And we'd like to see you next time. And I'll let everybody say their farewells. I'm going to close out.
Bye, everybody.
Everyone, take care.